and welcome to Dark Hour Paranormal. I am your host, Michael Roser, and many times, folks, we have the opportunity to speak to those higher up in the echelons of our field of esoterica. And of course, they bring to the table much knowledge, much experience, and much in the way of academic research. So we expect something of them, at least in the way of proposed idea, concept, or in the most rare of circumstances, they may actually present to us some physical proof of what they're talking about. Now, this is all fine and well. And of course, we certainly enjoy these type of guests, and we do learn quite a bit from them. But I have to remind you that within this type of work, within this type of research, you do become conditioned in certain respects, and that which may seem incredibly extreme or fantastic, if you will, becomes a little more dull around the edges. In no way do people jade themselves over this, but I will tell you this much. Those who have been researching this topic for years on end have a very solid base behind them. So, what of the common man? What of the layperson, if you will? And of course, neither of those terms are used in the pejorative. This is just exactly what it is. Somebody who's not constantly chasing ghosts or, following UFOs or looking out in the woods for cryptids, you name it. Somebody who just has a regular life devoid of this type of experience that we happen to have every day, as much as we may or may not seek it out. What of their thoughts? Well, tonight, folks, I think we have a very interesting story ahead of us from a good friend of mine who is named Stephen. Now, Stephen and I used to work together some years ago, and to my chagrin, I didn't realize the extent of what he had been sitting on in way of this anecdotal evidence. And of course, he has something physical to show us in way of photography. And there's an interesting story behind this, but the implication is really what I'm after here, folks. It's the insight that he can lend from his perception, using his filter, his lens, as somebody who is not ensconced within this field, but has still had experiences. And of course, like I said, he's going to show us something tonight that may perk all of your ears right to the sky. Folks, very, very quickly and without further ado, as we say here on YouTube, I'd like to introduce to you Stephen. Stephen, how you doing tonight, my friend? Thanks so much for being on the show and taking the time to, dole this on us, really.
Yeah, thanks for having me. That was a beautiful intro, by the way. You have a beautiful vocabulary.
Thank you. I am somewhat of a wordsmith. I think you know that well enough.
I was pretty impressed, I'm not going to lie.
Well, I'll just say for the audience at large, before I decided to get back into radio, I didn't really have an outlet for this type of talk. So unfortunately, Stephen happened to know me well at that time, and along with most of the other people we worked with, I drove them all crazy. But I do have to give Stephen credit because he did keep up and at least entertain what I was talking about without rolling his eyes.
It was pretty fun.
Hey, listen, I appreciate it, man. It's fantastic to see you in this capacity today. And of course, as far as I've taken things and the other channels, we have all been intertwined in one way or another. You know what? The road out always leads back home, my friend. And if we're not done with the experiences that we need to with each other, they'll find their way as long as we're prepared. So listen, let me kind of start in way of origin. Okay. So we're not going to get into a character here tonight with you that has been explicitly versed in the paranormal. Maybe you've done a little bit of research here and there. You've seen a special or two on television. It's garnered your interest. Prior to what you're going to present to us tonight, have you had yourself any paranormal or anomalous experiences growing up or going into early adulthood and so forth?
I would say, if anything, probably when I was younger, maybe like a young to mid-teen, I would say. Just because this house that I grew up in, it was like in our family for generations and stuff. It was definitely odd growing up there. And I guess when I explain a little bit more, we can go into a little bit more detail on that. But if I had
Give me a little more volume on your voice. Give me a little bit more from the throat. Thank you.
Yeah, so anyway, probably when I was younger, maybe like a kid, maybe like early teen, stuff like that. I grew up in this house that was in my family for like generations. Basically, my great-great-grandfather built it. And it was an odd house to live in, I would say. definitely some odd experiences, but I can start getting into that once we get in a little bit more detail here. So yeah, where do you want to start on this?
So let's go right to the core here. You have a very interesting photograph, and
Yeah.
one thing I want to point out, and it's something that we really kind of touched upon very briefly before the show, and that is the fact that, you know, when you are presented with a physical photograph on Kodak or something akin in way of film, okay, yes, we're aware of some of the techniques and tricks that people used to use in a dark room to develop this, and how they could overlay certain things to perhaps superimpose, and then, you know, it would create a different photograph. But because it was a singular, physical, tangible copy of something, it was harder for us to analyze it unless we had the negative, right? Mm-hmm. So today we have a lot of submissions that come in, but, you know, these are taken on digital devices, and therefore it's very difficult for us to immediately ascertain the genuine nature of what we're looking at. We know the manipulation of Photoshop. We understand how these programs are plentiful out there, and that there are scrupulous folks that would do just these things. So this photograph that you have is so significant, again, because it is so tangible in way of physical evidence. I'm going to bring this up and show it on the screen, and I'm going to let you explain, you know, not only the anomaly that we're going to get to, but, you know, tell us a little bit about the people that are in the photograph, to the best of your knowledge, when this photograph was taken, and any other peripheral details that, you know, you feel are important to include in this.
Yeah, perfect. Cool. Let's do it.
Let me pull this up here. Where the hell are you? I mean, you know, the idea is that I'm able to do this.
I believe in you. You can definitely do this.
Hey, I do too. You know, most of the time when I'm looking in the mirror and still realize I exist. Hold on one second here.
Technical difficulties, everybody.
Well, I mean, do you have this picture ready on your screen in any capacity?
Actually, yeah.
All right, why don't you throw that up instead of me wasting everybody's time here. Sorry for that, guys. Perfect. Hey, very quickly, I just want to say hello while he's doing that. Kelly Lewis, welcome to the show. Hey, thanks. Discovery Plus would be a next step, I should say. Betty Double Kick Chick, good to see you back. And, of course, thank you for being here. Scotty B, good to see you, my friend Kingson. Welcome to the show, brother. Third Phase of Moon. Guys, Third Phase of Moon is in the house. And I want to thank you guys from behind the scenes for some of your contributions to tonight's show in way of helping me along with certain suggestions. It's much appreciated. Of course, you guys know Third Phase of Moon. If you don't, go check them out. Largest ufology channel on the internet, guys. Cashew Gesundheit, thank you for being here. My #1 moderator. I'm sure we'll see Coral on pop in eventually here. Steven, are you ready?
Yeah, let's do it. All right, so I have them pulled. So I have this software. It's basically like a design software. So I took like a bunch of, basically all this morning, I took like a bunch of these old-timey photos from like a 30-year period, and I just kind of put them on a canvas, so that way we can kind of go through them together. But we'll start with pretty much the one that we're going to show here. So hold on a second. There we go. So basically, this is the photo. You can see it, right?
Yes. Okay.
It's kind of zoomed in, but you get the idea, right? So
zoomed in is good.
What's that?
So, sorry, I said zoomed in is good. So we can see all the detail.
Cool. So obviously, this is like a digital version of a real picture. But so what you'll see here is, maybe I can even like mark it up here. See how good I am. All right, so obviously people here, great. So this is my great-grandfather. Cool guy, never met him. This is my great-grandmother. This is my great-grandfather. And then this is my grandmother or one of his siblings. And then this is his brother. Not very good with the whole family tree here. But then you have this anomalous figure over here, right? So this is what my family calls the ghost picture. So nobody in the family. So this picture's been around since I want to guess the early 50s. So this was before my dad was born, and my dad was born in 59. So it has to at least be before then. So anyway, yeah, so this was taken at the house built in the early 1900s by my great-great-grandfather. Again,
so this house was built by your great-great-grandfather?
Correct, yeah. Okay. This is in the suburbs of Boston, greater Boston area. And I'll show some other pictures after this. But yes, house been around for a while. So anyway, this is on the second floor. It's on a balcony. So I can show you different angles and stuff after this. But basically, the reason why this picture is known as the ghost picture in the family is because you have this creepy figure over here. And again, nobody really knows who it is. And based on the layout of the house, again, this is kind of like a balcony on the second floor, and there's like really no way that this person can be there.
Can you zoom up a little bit on the figure in the right there?
Oh yeah,
just so we can get a better. Yeah, thank you. Perfect.
Probably the best you can get. Like I can't even tell if it's like maybe like a woman or a child. You just can't really tell. It's kind of like just like an odd image. But anyway, like I said, it's on the second floor, and it's in like an area where it doesn't really make sense for like a person to be there. And yeah, it has brought much mystery to the family because
so where this figure is. All right, there's I think reasonably one of two initial explanations. If this is a person behind there, of course we have our thoughts on that. This person is either clearly very tall or standing on something that raises them up quite a bit higher than anybody else in the picture, or as you say, there's no real solid ground there. This is a terrace that leads to outside, and there's nothing for this individual to stand on, and therefore they must be floating there. It's very curious. One of the first things I noticed when I kind of zoomed up on this photo is that the apparition, we can see very definitively some of the facial features, and the cheeks themselves seem to be a little bit rounded. Now, I'm also looking at, I believe it's your great-grandfather there in the picture in front of us?
Right in the middle here? Yep.
Yes.
That's him.
He almost has a similar cheekbone structure based on what I'm seeing in the photography. And the reason I think that's significant is that there are instances where we capture a family member that has been deceased for quite some time in these family photos, but the fact of the matter is that this family member may be so far removed, I'm talking generations back, that nobody personally remembers or has photographs of this. This could have been, within the lineage so far back that, this particular entity had some affinity for this family enough to stay around. Maybe because, you said possible. That. Well, yeah, sure. I mean, well, the property itself was built by a family member, so we can rule out that this was, some place that somebody had died before, or even maybe rule out some of the land explanation saying that something occurred on the land, because this person doesn't appear to be in any sort of periodic garb as dark as it is. They actually appear to be dressed within the same era as the other people in the photograph. So when your family found this photograph and developed it and they saw this, what was their reaction initially here?
So it's from what I've been told, it's been kicking around since my dad was a kid. So probably like the 60s is when they actually noticed it. And they told me about it as a kid, but to be honest, it was in the attic for decades. Once my grandmother died, when I was a senior in high school, we were like cleaning out basically the attic and stuff, and we kind of came across the picture again. And we're like, oh man, remember this? And then my dad ended up putting it on all digital and all that stuff, and a bunch of other pictures. So it was kind of like lost for a few decades, actually.
And I'm sorry if you had said this already, but who took this photograph?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I might be able to find out, but I didn't ask.
It's just interesting to know in way of the whole picture here, all puns intended. So when your family saw this, they sort of just said, well, there's an apparition there, and then kind of pushed it aside and went on with their day because they maybe couldn't explain it any further?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, from what I'm aware, like I said, it's been around since they were kids. Even back then, they just kind of never knew who it was, and they're like, that's kind of weird. And then just kind of, went about their lives, never really thought about it, just kind of ended up in the attic over time. Yeah, just kind of like, just kind of happens, with life. And then it was just kind of rediscovered. And at that point, it's been like 40 years later. Nobody's even around anymore that we even know anything about this photo, except for like my dad and his brothers. and that's pretty much all they say about that. Is just like when they were kids and stuff, nobody really knew anything about it. They couldn't figure out who it was or anything like that.
So you don't get the sense that anybody tried to hide this or, kind of tuck it away out of view. It was just something sort of lost in storage, so. Right?
Yeah, I mean, like, you just, like me personally, I'll put stuff to the side. Next thing you know, I'll look for it like 5 years later. It's in the basement somewhere. You know what I mean? Some you don't, you kind of just don't even think about anymore. It just ends up somewhere. That's probably what happened to like most of their photos, I would imagine. They're all just like in a big pile, and we just ended up digitizing them. And next thing you know, they're just like, oh, remember this? I'm like, oh, yeah.
I find that to be the seldom outcome in a lot of these cases where people have evidence this way. I think that there's occasionally somebody in the family that doesn't want it revealed, or that they're not comfortable with the side of things. Maybe they're going to be ridiculed, deemed crazy, you name it, even within their own family. So for your family to kind of look at this, say, oh, that's there, and accept it and sort of move on, it says a lot to the strength of, your family's perception and way of acceptance of something that may not be tangible, that we can, really readily explain. And I think that's cool. I wish every family would do that,
Yeah, it was from my dad's side of the family, and they're definitely very religious and stuff, and they're very big on the spirit side, I guess. So they're pretty comfortable with stuff like that. So it was just like, yeah, whatever. They're just like, oh yeah, it's just the ghost picture, whatever. Pretty casual about it.
So you've mentioned that you have other photographs that, do you have anything that shows this section of the house from the outside, wherein we can see possibly where this figure might have been?
Yeah, I can actually show you right now. So this is when it was during its construction. I would guess probably maybe like the 20s or 30s or something. And I'll show you why I guess that. But basically, that picture, they are all sitting kind of in, it's probably the best I can do. Like this area right here, right? And so that person would have to be kind of like hanging out in this area somewhere. You know what I mean? And that's
I see.
It's pretty high up. Like maybe you can have a ladder or something, but even then, like you can't really see it, and it's like in such an awkward spot. It just doesn't really make sense, especially with the angle of the person, I don't think. And like I said, I grew up in that house. It doesn't really
Can you zoom up a little bit on that window, if you wouldn't mind?
Yeah. This one?
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we get a real clear image here of what we're looking at.
Yeah, so basically since then they installed windows and stuff. Again, this was kind of like during the construction. I think I have one more actually. It's this one. That one's very hard to look at. But yeah, you see this like old-timey car over here. Yeah, it's kind of like the same 30s. Thing. I think now you have windows in it, but this is probably the clear picture.
So as we can clearly see, there's nothing, at least in way of this photograph, for the individual that was showing up in your photo to stand on. And if there was a ladder there, we can say that, reasonably your family would have known some interloper was, sticking their head into the photograph. Even this presence more than likely would have been detected by the folks on the left side of the photograph as they're facing out, but their bodies are still turned in position towards the apparition. So, okay, there's one thing we can certainly rule out, that, this individual, whatever it is, this entity, is certainly not standing on solid ground.
Yeah, no, like I said, it's always kind of confused people just because of let's say the layout of the house and where it is, and especially on the second floor, it's just kind of really awkward. But yeah, since then they actually kind of filled up this whole area with more land and stuff. So I might have another picture there. Oh yeah.
Have you ever? You've been in this house yourself?
Yeah, no, I grew up in this house.
Okay, so have you ever felt any sort of odd presence as you were walking about growing up in this particular place?
Oh yeah, dude, it was so weird.
Well, tell me about that a little bit. Was it uncomfortable, or just?
It definitely had a weird vibe. I don't know if uncomfortable was the right word. It was definitely, maybe uncomfortable is the right word actually. It was definitely a little odd. I don't think I've ever really felt anything like that. Maybe just because it's I don't really know if it was just because it was my grandmother's house basically, and it was just like an old house, but there was something, I don't know, that place definitely, you could feel it in the air. It definitely had some sort of history. Um,
Did the air feel heavy
no,
or just electric or?
no, not quite. I wouldn't say any of that. It was more like, hmm, I guess I could probably talk about like some stuff that happened. It's like nothing major. Maybe this could
Sure.
kind of I'm kind of blanking on words here, but basically, so I'd have like weird things that happen. So my grandmother, she had like terrible Alzheimer's and dementia, and she just had like a hard time remembering everything. She wasn't very good at walking, right? So what I would do is whenever I would stay over, I would stay in the second floor. And I'd basically live in this house on the weekends for about like 10, 15 years, something like that. So like every weekend I'd go over, right? And I would stay in the second floor, and you'd always hear noises and stuff, but I always kind of attributed that to, it's an old house. It's got like a lot of radiators and stuff. It just kind of makes
Sure.
a lot of creaks and stuff. Whatever. I mean, I never really thought too much of it. But there have been like a good amount of times where I'd be on like the second floor, be like trying to sleep, and you know, go to bed one day, wake up the next morning, and stuff would be moved. And then I'd go down to my grandmother, very Italian. I'd be like, "Hey, Nani, did you move any of that?" And she'd be like, "Huh?" And then I think about it, and it's like, "Oh, you can't even go up. She can't. Even, she couldn't even go up the stairs." So I'm like, obviously, it wasn't her. I always thought that was kind of weird. I always thought it was just like my imagination or something. Just mainly because it was just most of the time it was just me and her. My dad usually wasn't there. My sister generally wasn't there, so it was just the two of us. Um, Basically, stuff like that. I will say, late at night, whenever she went to bed, I definitely did. That's generally when I felt uncomfortable. But overall, during the day, I never really felt uncomfortable in that house. But at night, it definitely kind of felt like, I don't want to say I was being watched, because that's kind
Mm-hmm.
of like, I don't know, it just kind of feels like an overwhelming experience to me
Mm-hmm.
anyway. But it wasn't too. That's probably the closest thing I can relate it to. I guess so. I'll go with that actually.
Did you have any
Um,
odd dreams while you were there that sort of pointed to something anomalous that you know you wouldn't normally have a dream about?
mm, Not that I can think of, but again, that
Mm-hmm.
was like 15 years ago.
Sure.
Um, it's definitely possible. I can't think of anything right now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah.
Well, that's fine. That's fine. It's just one of those things we do through the checklist when we're looking through and talking about how to collect the experiences and evidence that we have to form something that looks more cohesive. I think that is the most important part, and people have heard me talk about this for years. It's the cohesion of
Yep.
these experiences that really give us a larger picture of what's there. Now, in this picture that you have in front of us, this is another shot of the front of the house, and we can
Yeah,
see
this
that
is
it's
probably
yep.
maybe like 10, 20 years later. So as you can see, compared to the other picture, they've filled up with a lot more land. It's a lot more developed and all that stuff. You can see there's
Hmm.
vines growing on that first floor right there. And they put in windows and stuff and actually made it look a lot better. Now there's a house next door. Um, yeah, so all the stuff over time has been developed. But yeah, it's kind of the same layout is still there. It's just a little
Hmm.
bit. This is probably closer to the time of the picture, I would say, than the first one.
Okay. Is this house still erect today? Is it still up?
Yeah, we
Hmm.
sold the house maybe like 8 or 9 years ago. When my grandmother died, we sold it, I think, a year later.
Hmm.
So I'm not quite sure who owns it. I know it is dorms for
Oh,
Boston College, though, which is unfortunate. But
interesting. Yes,
yeah,
very
no,
unfortunate, but interesting nonetheless.
yeah, it was weird. I was talking to my cousin, and she and my uncle, they actually went through there and everything, and they kind of just changed the whole place, but like nothing like it was before.
Can you do me a favor very quickly and just zoom up on the figure that's on the stairs? I want to see something real quick.
Oh, I have that picture. Yeah, that's my grandmother.
Okay. Is she standing? Am I seeing that correctly?
No, she's sitting down.
Okay.
She's sitting on the
Okay.
stairs. Yeah.
All right, then that negates what I had to say next. All right, perfect. Okay, no, I see it now that you've pointed this out. Okay.
Yeah. It's
When I
just so
first looked at
blurry.
it, I thought it was a full figure standing, and I thought in a way of the photography they may have been moving, and therefore the bottom half where the shadow is, I thought those were legs, but now upon further
Oh,
inspection,
I
I can
see.
see that she's certainly firmly planted there on the first step. Okay, so how about, you have siblings?
Yep.
What were their experiences in this house? Did you guys talk about this at all? Did you pore over this picture at one point and offer each other's opinions? What did the rest of your family have to say about living in this house or growing up over a period of time?
Um. So my sister is my younger sister, and she didn't spend nearly as much time in this house as I did. Um. Also, she was like very young. She probably never even like thought about it or considered it or anything like that. Um. So I don't think that she, to be honest, has an opinion about this. And
Hmm.
like my cousins and stuff, they would come over, obviously for like family events, but again, they never really stayed over like I did. Like the
Hmm.
majority of the time, I want to say it was just either me, my dad, or my grandmother. That was like the three people that would basically live there the majority of the time. Um, and yeah, I don't, I don't think my dad has had anything crazy like that.
Hmm.
And then my grandmother, obviously, I just never asked her.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah,
How quickly the generations go by,
I know
and
it's
you
kind of
know,
crazy actually.
one day they're there and the next day they're not. Um, it's certainly sobering to keep this in mind, but I find that many times we don't act quick enough. But you know what? Things happen the way that they're supposed to. If maybe you had talked to her about this, you'd have an answer today and you would be the same person because you would have conviction in something that you don't right now. So who
Right.
knows how speaking to her would have changed your life, but we do all have our own paths, and as curious and thirsty as we are for certain truths, a lot of times there are instances where we need to traverse a certain avenue to go through that journey, that experience, to get to the revelation at the very end, even though we can surmise with intellectual property that, this conclusion is probably the case. But again, we have to go through. Very quickly, can you just bring up the photo of the apparition again? Third Phase of Moon is asking, can you get a real good close-up of the ghost? And what I'm
Okay.
going to do as you do that is point out a few more of the details that I'm noticing here. So first and foremost, we talked about the facial structure, but this is really uncanny. Now, one of the things I've noticed with a lot of these photographs is that the apparition appears to be facing away from the light source. So in this, it's a little unique because you still get those reflections right off of the face. And again, you can see the nose, two cheeks, the chin, you can see the lips, you can see where the eyes would rest, but we don't see the eyes themselves. We don't really know why this is, but again, this is a consistency that I have found. Again, when you're coming down, it does look, and it's hard to tell, but it does look like she's wearing some sort of overcoat. Can you see that too, or do you agree, or do you see something different, Stephen?
To be honest, I could never make out the outfit.
Hmm.
To me, it just looks like a big black blob. You can definitely see the face, but as far as the outfit, I just can't make anything of it. It's definitely possible. I don't know.
What we can
There's
do,
not enough detail.
excuse me, what we can do, and I will undertake this endeavor after the show, is I'll go through and sort of add some filtering and highlight and see if we can't play with the contrast a little bit to get out some of these deeper impressions in way of what appears to be the garb. Now, for me, I see what appears to be some very thick collar around, and then down in the
Yeah.
middle front here, you see this overlap that makes me, again, believe that it might be an overcoat. And if I were to be somewhat observant here, I might even say that this is part of the bust. And if that's the case, again, we're getting more definitive detail in this one photo than I think in the majority of photos that are similar to this. The washing that's occurring on certain areas of this photograph, certainly on the left, we see it prominently, and then on the right, up by her face, I think, again, is really just a matter of the light and how this photograph was developed. this particular apparition to me seems like it wants to be there. It wants to be part of this picture. When I look at the photograph as a whole, if you didn't tell me that was an apparition, I think she was somebody from the family. That's how it's presented. Is she doesn't seem to be imposing any sort of malicious fashion. She doesn't seem to be garnering some sort of attention. She just seems to be, and I'm saying she because that's, to me, it looks like a woman. It looks like she just happened to be there and said, hey, I want to be part of this photograph. Hey, how you doing? Very interesting way of a benign approach, really, I think, from this side. So, in your opinion, Stephen, why do you think this apparition chose to appear in this photograph with your family?
That's a good question. I'm not sure. I wish I knew more about the people that lived in the house before my great-grandparents. Then maybe I wish I knew more of the history behind it. Maybe I could ask my dad and all that stuff. But to be honest, I have no idea. It's definitely a house that has a lot of history for our family. So I don't know. It just makes sense for the person to either be like maybe a family member or something. For this particular picture, I have no idea.
You know, of course, again, we talk about information that's lost. Possibly your great-grandfather could have shed some light on this at one point. We simply just don't know, and yet at the very end of the day, this is what we're left with, this really curious and compelling evidence. Is there any way that you can get a little closer to her face? I don't know if you're able to do that within the program.
Yeah. No, I definitely can. It's just going to be very pixelated.
That's okay.
Like, maybe like that.
Yep, we're okay with that. Yep. Yeah. I mean, quite clearly, she's even blocking some of the light source. Obviously, you see the reflection there, but this stuff really gets me because there is something in way of solidity when it comes to these particular photographs. And you know, your guess at this point is as good as mine, you know, when we talk about etheric energy. But, you know, again, we speak about levels of vibration and how some of our technology can pick up and are sensitive to these levels of vibration that perhaps we don't see with our naked eye as readily. We do catch glimmers and flickers out of the corners and the peripherals. We talk about shadow people and so forth. I don't always think that those shadows that we see in the corner of our eyes are necessarily something non-human existing just in the overtone above us or below us, whatever you want to say. I think sometimes, and this has been proposed, that these are family members or aspects of our higher selves or aspects of what you would consider a guardian angel, just lowered in vibration, that sliver part of them, and you see them come about. Now, I don't have a lot of example or proof to really back that up in way of theory, but it's something that I've been contemplating more seriously, whereas everybody is jumping towards the nefarious end of things, saying, you know, what we're seeing in way of shadows, it's not good. It's going to be a bad
I never
thing.
So those feelings I talked about when I was living there, it's not, I never had an ill feeling, like a feeling of like bad energy. It was generally very good. But you could tell there was just something off about it. I will say it's funny that you bring up like guardian angels and stuff because there was some, like I said, my Italian side, very religious. So they, in every room, there's like 50 crosses and like pictures of Jesus and a lot of pictures of angels. You know what I mean? We had like a statue of Jesus on the second floor, like a lot of stuff like that. So it's kind of funny that you brought that up because it kind of just jogged my memory about all this kind of angel artwork that was throughout the house, I guess.
Well, if you have a family or some person who is very religious, within their perception, within their paradigm of understanding, they are manifesting their reality. And within that, we can actually pull out, I would say, connections with other energies that perhaps we've worked with in a more focused and conscious sense, and maybe in this lifetime it's not our purpose to do so, but these entities still want to stick around us. Maybe they have an affinity for who we are, maybe they remember the experiences they've had with us, maybe they simply couldn't join us in this lifetime, but they are still part of what we consider to be a soul family. Now, there's a number associated with this. They say 144 is the number of entities or singular energies within a soul family. I don't know that for sure, but within sacred geometry and looking at 12 as a certain denominator, I guess there can be some sense made within this, at least logically explained through that modality. This is really cool because, again, this is an older photo. This isn't a time period where people were really contriving things with such malicious and proliferant intent. They were, one-off here and there. Or you got the guy who says his kids see fairies out in England and takes pictures of these cardboard cutouts that he and his daughters created. We found the explanations as time has gone on, but you see something like this staring you right in the face, and in fact, if you look at her facial expression, come to think of it, it seems very relaxed. It doesn't seem menacing. There's no grimace there. There's nothing in the way of fear. So I'm going to have to sit on our initial thoughts with this and say, this is probably a very loving energy that was around your family. And if they're religious and you're close to that type of connection, and I'll put it that way, folks, because I understand religion has its own variables to kind of sift through, if you will. And a lot of them can be downright quagmire-ish when you come to seeking what's really between the lines of certain religion. By and large, that love, that connection, that morality of, some sort of esteem that brings you to your higher vision of yourself, this is where you find that connection and still have relevant experiences within a religious modality that is technically quite limited in way of perception, right? I think we can all agree on that to some extent. And then find something outside of this, but you're actually calling it in. So to make it roundabout again, these folks are manifesting their reality. They may have called in, certain love and allowed for something like this to be closer to us. Because I guarantee you, if they carried a certain negative energy with them, or if they were the type of people that were just very hardened and not sensitive to anything, that we would speak on at length, this may not have been an opportunity for this energy to actually solidify within the vibration that we can see it. So this is really amazing, Stephen. And very quickly, I want to say, Mysteria Dragonheart, thank you so much for the $3 super chat. Nope, it's a super sticker. I don't know if you guys send specific stickers. I always see your avatar, but I never see the actual sticker. So if you're sending something in the way of a particular design, please let me know so I can figure out why the hell I can't see it. At any rate, thank you for your continued support of Dark Hour Paranormal. And folks, she has some of the best mugs on the planet with my mug firmly stapled on there in way of picture. So I have to give Misty a huge shout out for that. Thank you so much. I appreciate you, of course, as you always know. Now, as we're moving forward with this, Stephen, is there anything else that you'd like to impart on us in way of this photograph, of your experiences surrounding this property, or anything else in peripheral sense that has relativity to what we're speaking on today?
I was actually thinking about it. So obviously we had this scheduled ahead of time. I was kind of thinking about it ahead of time, and it's not necessarily something related to this photograph. It's just kind of what I felt being in that house, just in general. So, and kind of like a little bit of history. So, like I said, I had like a lot of, it's a family house and all that stuff. And I had like probably a good amount of family members die in that house. Like just for like natural causes, you know what I mean? Nothing crazy like murders or anything, just totally normal stuff.
Sure.
Sure. So my father's father, my grandfather, he died when my dad was maybe like 8 years old or something like that. So my grandmother was a single mother and raised 3 boys all by herself, never really remarried, and just did everything. And I'm not necessarily sure if maybe what I was feeling when I was growing up might have been like my grandfather sticking around because he had a heart attack in that house. But my grandmother also died in that house when I was a senior in high school. And when I when we were like cleaning it out, it just, as soon as she was gone, it felt like a different energy in that house.
Mm-hmm.
Like everything that I've felt in that house my whole life was just gone. It just felt like just like a regular house after. And again, I was only there for like a couple more days before we left. But I don't know. Maybe it really is family related or something. But yeah, I figured I'd throw that in there as well. But again, nothing really related to the photograph.
But still, that's certainly relevant in way of that property. And I think it's interesting that when you walk into a place that has been inhabited for so long, and maybe you had a connection, family connection with the person that lived there, once they are gone, that energy does change. And I've experienced this myself, cleaning out family members' houses who have passed away in the past. I've certainly noticed that that was something that was present. Now, with this in mind, too, this particular entity could have simply been meshed or intermeshed within, the family's energy and may not have had anything to do with the property. But the curious thing here is that the love, sweat, and labor of your great-grandfather to build this house is certainly there. And that energy is imbued within the constructs. Now, when he passes away, there's the option to take that energy with you, but you always leave a signature or some sort of imprint. And this is why, in my opinion, we can walk into some of these ancient sites, even like Göbekli Tepe or the Great Pyramids in Giza, and we can still feel the resonance of what may have happened there so long ago. It's thick. It leaves a signature. It leaves an imprint. The earth itself is a record keeper, and I don't think people look at it this way. They may hold crystals in their hands and say, yeah, these are record keepers. Where do they come from? The elements within the earth. The earth itself, just like ourselves, carries record. And I think with a circumstance like this, we may even be able to go back and feel in perhaps an intuitive way that this actually occurred and this presence was there. Personally, as I'm sitting here speaking with you, and I reach out into those ethers, I don't feel, any of this energy that may have once been encapsulated in this particular area. I think that this was part of an era, and certainly connected definitively to the members of this photograph, if not the rest of your family. So, I really appreciate you sharing this with us. It gives us a lot to think about, and as I mentioned, I will follow up on this and work with the contrast and other filters that I can to bring this photograph out a little bit more in detail and define it in certain ways so that we can, again, further analyze this. And perhaps within, again, the collection of these photographs and the analysis at hand and the stories that go behind it, we'll be able to come to some sort of consensus, folks. That's where we're headed. We're not given a piece of paper or a documentation that says, here you go, this is how it is. Read that, write black and white, it's on paper. We are now left to discover these things on our own and come to our own conclusions. Why? Because we need to be back in our empowerment. I'm sorry, let me try that again. We need to be self-empowered once again. And this is the direction that we're taking. If we are becoming more, or less solid, I should say, not more something, but less solid in way of this third dimensional vibration, well, then we're moving into something that is considered to be intangible in way of something you can hold in your hand, and yet you can experience it and quantify it and measure it. Well, that is certainly a facet of reality, folks. Stephen, I'm going to close out the show with you at the moment here, but here's what I'd like to do. If you have anything that you'd like to promote, you do anything on in way of website, sorry, tripping over my tongue here, you have a YouTube channel, you're on Twitter, you're on Facebook, whatever you'd like to promote. If you'd like people to reach out to you, you can throw out an email. At any rate, the floor is yours, my friend.
I wish I had something to promote. I'm a simple man, unfortunately. I don't have anything. Follow the show, everybody. I'll promote you. I'm going to promote you, okay?
Oh, that's nice of you. That's kind of you.
That's the best I can do for you.
Listen, that works for me. Again, thank you so much, Stephen, for coming on the show. This is the type of format that I like to play with a little bit too, because again, we get the side of somebody's story that doesn't necessarily look into this every day, and you're not jaded and saturated with, the topics at hand and the theories and the concepts and the conclusions and everything else that swims around the way that we have to make ourselves through this sea of confusion. For the meantime, if you'd like to if you have to go, I understand. If you can stick around for a minute or two, I'd like to say my goodbyes off camera. But of course, it's up to you, my friend. I'm going to take you off for the moment. But once again, Thank you so much, brother, for coming on the show and sharing this with the world at large, man.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, let me know if you need anything else.
I appreciate it. You can tell your mom that this is what we did, and hopefully she'll give a good smile. You know what I mean, brother?
Yeah, exactly.
Excellent, mate. Thank you. Stick around. I'm going to close out for now. Folks, I knew this would be a little bit of a shorter show because we had one photograph to pour over, and of course this lends to more question than it does anything definitive. But that's the nature of what we do, right? And we will continue to work towards that end as much as possible, as long as we have air in our lungs. We'll be here talking about it, we'll be out in the field filming about it, and we'll be putting together documentaries and other presentations of all of this material as time goes forward. Now, this year we have quite a few things planned, and I will say that I have at least one or two more guests for this week. I may not make it a 4-show week this one coming here. I have a lot to work on in way of what Third Phase of Moon is putting together. I have a lot of work to put into Dr. J Radio Live's channel, and I have a couple other things that I put together and have been stitching as time goes on for you guys that I think you'll enjoy. But until next time, folks, hey, you know what to do. You stay vigilant, you stay curious, and hell, continue to explore this beautifully nebulous field that we all traverse in seeking the truth. My God, my words and terminology are not coming together as one tonight. It's a long day. When I'm at the day job and it's slower, I end up getting more lackadaisical within, not my attitude, but, the way I'm moving physically. And sometimes things don't click. Hey, listen, I appreciate all of you sticking with me on these later shows, which I'm actually getting to enjoy. I'm growing to like these later shows, and I look forward to them from the time I wake up. So thank you all for being here. Thank you to my super chatters and moderators for all your fantastic work and support of the show. And folks, we're going to see you later this week. In the meantime, I already said my catchphrase. Ciao!